The Expert Series is brought to you by Draw It Paint, the dry erase paint company that allows you to create the exact space you want. Our products are designed for performance, engineered for durability, and manufactured for quality. Draw It Paint's 3 formulas will allow you to reach every possibility. Behold your best work.
Elementary general music teacher in Pennsylvania.
All right, that'll work. How long have you been in Pennsylvania?
Born and raised, actually. I've lived here my whole life.
Have you ever thought about moving? Is moving kind of something on a bucket list, or?
No, I am a hometown girl. I actually teach in the district that I graduated from, so I've never had any ambitions to travel or really go outside my comfort zone. So I'm happy here. It has everything I need, and I'm good with that.
Nice. How long have you been teaching for?
This is my 18th year.
18. Yeah, that's a long time.
And
was teaching always something you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was. My mom was going to college, night school, when I was in elementary school. She was going to get her teaching certification. And when she became a preschool teacher, I just thought it was really very cool working with kids all day. I loved working with little kids because, it's just playing, because at that time I'm in elementary school. I don't know any different. And it was a lot of fun. And I just thought it was a really cool thing watching her do what she did, because she had music and then story time and, all the things. And I just thought that's a pretty cool gig. And that's kind of where my interests lie.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Is it because of so you're a music teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is it because have you always had I don't know, a special place in your heart for music, and that's why you wanted to tie it in as a teacher, because you liked playing with kids or teaching kids or whatnot?
It's funny. Music was just something to do. For me, we lived in a different town when I was growing up in elementary school, and when I had gone to a Catholic school for the first 4 years. And for one reason or another, my parents pulled me out. And so in 5th grade, I was in a public school, and your choices on entering that 5th grade class were to be in chorus, band, or orchestra. And for me, I kind of looked at everything and watched the presentations that those teachers did, and both the orchestra teacher and the chorus teacher just looked older than I don't even know what. And the band teacher was this cool young guy who was just funny, and he just made it look like so much fun. And I thought, yes, let's try this. And it was, like I said, it was just something to do for me. It was something that I could look forward to in school, in between math and PE and other things that I really disliked. Music for me was something to look forward to. When my parents moved us to the area that I currently live in, it was just something to do. And I did not get along very well with my middle school band director. He was just a very, he was a kind man, but he was also aggressive in trying to make middle schoolers care. And if you remember middle school, this is not how it works. Kids are going to be going through their things, and they're not going to care on principle. And I remember he had just put me into a category of just she is an underachiever. She's never going to be anything different. He put me in that category, and I think that really just bugged me about him. And when I got to the end of my 8th grade year, permission slips for marching band came out, and at the middle school level, it was just a glorified parade band, and it was horrible, and we wore like the worst things ever. But everyone in my section, I played flute, and everyone in the flute section just, they had better things to do, like cheerleading or other girly things that they were very interested in, and passed up on those opportunities. And I distinctly remember him like handing me this permission slip, like as a last resort, like, all right, well, let me give this a try here. Let's see what you know, can do with this. And that was like such a life-changing moment for me, because while middle school marching band was a joke, I got the chance to see what the high school marching band was. And for me, it blew my mind that you could make such awesome things with your instrument. You could do such amazing things. And like, I still get chills when I hear percussion playing their cadence. Whenever I see the band buses on the highway, like, I always just am like, oh, you're going on an adventure, and I'm so envious. So for me, that was like a turning point, and I thought, okay, I want to get there. I want to be in that high school marching band, and I want to experience that. And so that was my incentive to work really hard. But I was, and still am, a very introverted person, and so I didn't like make that known. So whenever we would do playing tests and things like that, like, I would just, you know, do the bare minimum and keep it pretty simple. And of course, that still did not endear me to my band director at all, but I didn't care at that point. So at the end of my 9th grade year, the high school marching band director came to do like auditions for us, to just kind of get an idea of like who would be where within the section, like where they would sit. And I remember he was just so different. He was just the warmest person. And like, he saw in me what no one else up to that point had seen. So he saw potential, and he recognized my anxiety at an audition. He like spent a good, I must have been in that room a good 30 minutes. Like, everyone else is like in and out, like play your stuff and then leave and you're done and whatever. But like, I must have been in that room for 30 minutes, and I would play something, and then he would ask me questions, and I would answer them, and we would have a conversation, and then he'd say, play that again. And it would get marginally better every time I played it. And he recognized that, like, okay, you need to adjust, and then I can hear what you really can do. And I just left that feeling so good, because I thought, okay, someone finally got it. Someone finally saw me and gave me a chance, and I can do something with this. So starting marching band that fall in 10th grade, because our high school at that time was 10, 11, 12. So starting marching band that fall, I remember arriving to band camp, and there's these enormous seniors, just like facial hair, and they were at least 6 feet tall, and they had cars, and I'm sitting in my mom's car, and I got my little water jug, and I'm like, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into? But by the end of the day, they were my friends, and it was such an awesome experience. And I mean, not to be dramatic, but it was life-changing for me, because it gave me a place, and I found my tribe, and everything finally clicked. And for me, that was what I was missing, because school was the place that you go when you wake up and you have to go, like you had no choice. But all of a sudden now it had this purpose. And becoming a music teacher happened in the middle of a band class. We were doing something, and Mr. Lewis, the man responsible for making me a music teacher, he was yelling at somebody in the back, percussion or the low brass, whoever, somebody, and, you know, just trying to like get them ready for the upcoming competition. And he was like, I want you to sit there, and I want you to think about where you see yourself in 15 years. And he wasn't yelling at the flute, so I was not engaged in this conversation at all, but those words stood out, and I'm like sitting back and going like this, and he said that, and I just went like that, and I like not even consciously did it, but I just pointed right to where he was sitting. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. Cause he saw me do it and he's grinning at me and I'm grinning at him. And I'm like, oh God, this is so embarrassing. But then after class, he was like, all right, let's talk about this. What do you need to do to become a music teacher? And there was no other choice after that point. And it just kept going. And it was a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So the music teacher part was that was cool how that happened, how that all turned out.
Yeah.
You ever had like side thoughts of like being a musician? Like, you know, if someone were to ask that question, you would think like, oh, some people would answer like, oh, I just want to be a musician or something like that, or like an artist.
Yeah.
Was that ever a thought?
No. And the reason why I say that is because while technically speaking, I am a musician, I know my limitations, and I am a great teacher. I am able to take a difficult concept and I am able to break it down for all of my students, because I remember what it was like being the student that had no idea what anyone was talking about and wishing desperately that someone could just figure out a way to simplify it so that I could understand it. So for me, I take a lot more enjoyment in being able to communicate concepts and ideas and the teaching principles of everything to my students. I gain a lot of interest in that, and there's a lot of reward, I think, for me in teaching rather than performing. I was never a strong performer. Again, an introvert. I have social anxiety. Like, standing in front of 1,000 people is my idea of a nightmare. Like, that is not something I enjoy. You would never know it, of course, like when we get up to do our concerts and I have to talk to the whole auditorium of parents and things like that. Like, you would never know it, but performing a musical instrument or singing in front of a crowd has never held my interest.
Yeah, you do have to have the guts to do something like that. Some people are fine with it. I'm actually a musician myself, and it's like we switch off when we do interviews, me and Noel, and usually we kind of grab whoever we kind of relate to the most. And since I'm a musician myself, like I'm an independent artist, but I do I'm a composer for like orchestra music and stuff. So I bring stuff together.
Yeah.
And then I put it out. I also produce a lot of stuff, but I don't play any actual instruments. That's kind of like, yeah, I eventually want to like play the cello and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But it's expensive. So at the moment I do a lot of digital cello stuff.
Okay.
But like I want to do traditional instrumentals, because who wouldn't?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Have you considered renting?
What's this, sir?
Like just renting a cello.
Renting? I haven't really looked into it. I've thought of it, but I've never really gave it like too much thought kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, there are some really cool opportunities online. Like, as long as you can get yourself the instrument, there are teachers online available to do like Skype lessons, like this kind of thing. Like, it's available.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for it, but I just have to find the time to, invest into it. So, but yeah, so you said you played the flute and stuff?
Yes, that was my instrument of choice. That was my major when I finally got into college. So I studied flute all through, but to become a music educator, you had to learn every single instrument within reason. And I say within reason because I am 4'11" and I can't play a tuba because it's too big. My mouth is too small. I couldn't hold it to save my life. I also couldn't play a string bass, like a double bass, because again, my fingers are itty bitty. So like, those are the two exceptions, but like everything else I was trained on. And that was the coolest part of college to me. Just every semester taking 2 or 3 brand new instruments and learning how to play all of them. And it was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I love this. I missed that. That's the only thing I missed from college. Just sitting in a practice room all day with like 12 different instruments, just playing all of them. Like that was just so much fun.
Yeah, that's something I would totally want to do. When I was in school, we did more composition work, post-production work. We never really did instrument work. It's mixing and mastering is what we kind of did in college. So I had to kind of learn the producing part by myself. And doing digital production, like you can set up these touch screens and stuff, and you can have like the cello and like guitars lined up. Yeah. And then you have to play it on a touch. It's so weird. It's so different.
Yeah.
It would probably be so much easier using an actual instrument. But the thing with like the software I use is that they offer all of that like digital instrument stuff. So you have to take it with that price, because you can go buy all these instruments or rent all these instruments, and then it's going to be so much money just to bring it all into like a song at the end.
Yeah.
But when you mention all the instruments, what are like, I don't know, what is a list of them, like the different kind of woodwinds and stuff like that?
Well, how about I answer this? What my favorite ones to learn are, because if I have any repeated questions from my students, it's that. What was your favorite instrument to learn to play? And that very easily is the cello. Loved learning how to play the cello. It was such a rich, beautiful sounding instrument, and the vibrations against you it just took you to another level. Like, so when you get the chance, like definitely get your hands on a cello, because it's the best.
It's a very dramatic sound.
Yes, it is. I connect with that instrument. I also loved playing the bassoon. It was so difficult and so challenging to learn, because it was just a heavy monstrosity, and it was just so like it's hard to explain now, but like it was a heavy instrument, and it just made this just raw sound. And a very good friend of mine, I remember like coming late to class, and he was uptight about something, and we hadn't become friends yet. But he was uptight about something, and he was like, she can't play that. She was the world's worst bassoon player. And of course I walk in at that moment like, well, here I am. But that was the fun of it. That was the fun of learning how to play an instrument and recognizing your limitations. Like, whoo, okay, we got to slow that down because I can't play that fast yet. So the bassoon and the cello, both deep, rich sounding instruments, were awesome to play. I loved learning trumpet. I'm very good at trumpet. I love playing that. And the baritone, which is also very, very similar to the trumpet. So I often now, when our students, when the band director at the school that I work at, when he has openings available in his band, he'll say something like, I need an extra flute player, or I need an extra saxophone. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm there. I'm doing, so I'll be the, like super fifth grader, and so the kids are like sitting on stage with me, and they're like, but you know how to play this? You never come to the band rehearsals. It's like, yeah, I got this. It's fine, So I love playing baritone with the kids, because I think that's just so much fun. And I think it is good for them to see their teachers still playing. I think it's important for them to see that, like, what we do in the classroom does not end. Like, it is something that you will take with you as far as you want to go with it. And I think that's a really important thing for kids to see, that music is for life.
Yeah, it certainly is. With the mention of like the flute and all that, did you ever play the oboe, or was that something you never?
Let's just not. The oboe is the most frustrating instrument in the whole world, because I want you to imagine that you have like a coffee stirrer. Okay, so there's like these two teeny like little holes, right? that is exactly what an oboe reed is similar to. It's not exact, but it's similar to. And you need an enormous amount of air to play the oboe. But unfortunately, that air doesn't go anywhere because it's like you blow and it just stops right here. And it just is the slowest, most painful process. Then you get the sound out and it's like, oh. So I'm not a fan of the oboe. I have no love for the oboe. I apologize, oboe players. I just can't.
I know when I do composition for woodwinds and stuff, I use the oboe the most.
Do you?
For the fact is, how you say it's such a painful process. When I'm like producing it digitally, it's not hard to produce the sound you need.
No.
It's really crazy how the technology is just, you know, how advanced it is now that you can produce the same sound without actually having to, you know, play the instrument itself.
Right.
But the oboe, yeah, definitely. I like the sound of it. I use it more than anything else in terms of the woodwinds and all that. So
it is very expressive. I will say that. It is very expressive. And in the hands of a very capable, talented musician, it is a beautiful instrument.
Yeah.
I was not that musician. Had no interest.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's got their instruments and stuff. Everyone likes certain sounds, and that's kind of how it is.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask something else. Oh, yeah. With, like, what kind of, like, genres of music? Is it typically, like, classical, orchestra, rock?
What am I interested in?
Yeah, like, what music are you interested in? Or what you listen to?
Well, no, I don't listen to any of that. I don't listen to classical or baroque or romantic. My playlist it's all over the place. So I was a child of the 80s. So Tina Turner, what does love have to do with it? Pat Benatar, love is a battlefield. Prince, like Michael Jackson, those were my idols growing up. And any child of the 80s can tell you that any good 80s movie had a montage with like the hottest pop song ever. And like that's how I grew up. So that's how I just, when I think back to my first experiences with music, it's dancing around in my living room to MTV because it was brand new and it was great and it was fun and it was awesome. I was a teenager in the 90s. So Alanis Morissette, she felt my pain. I had no idea what she was really singing about, but yes, like it struck a chord. Nirvana, Sarah McLachlan, like there's so many different musicians out there that I don't know, they impacted my life at different times for different reasons. And I think any musician is affected like that because music comes to you when you need it and in the way that you need it, and it shapes you and helps you through whatever situation you're experiencing. So my playlist right now can start with Dolly Parton. The next track could be something off of the last completed album of the Bee Gees in 2001. It could be something from Journey, Huey Lewis and the News. It could be Fleetwood Mac, Aerosmith. Like there is not one particular genre of music that I seek out. I've got everything in there. I've got everything. And I don't know. It's just, like I said, music to me is a very subjective thing. And today I might be really into country, but tomorrow I'm going to be feeling 70s rock and I'm going to be feeling it hard. And it really just depends on who I need to sing my feelings for the day.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like music does bring out different feelings, different emotions, like different genres bring out different feelings in general. I do like metal, but it's just because it's aggressive. It's like an anger type. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of like hype in a way.
It fills that for you.
Yeah.
It gives you what you need in that moment.
Yeah. So that's yeah, a lot of people hate on it. But I really don't understand, because it's like, it's something they don't get, you
Well,
know? That's with any music genre. If you don't like a music genre, it doesn't mean that genre is bad. It just means like you don't get it. It's not filling in that gap for you. So
yeah, you just don't connect with it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't like EDM though.
There is anyone who does. There's like maybe like this cult following, but I haven't found anybody that's like, oh my gosh, this is the best.
Yeah. I don't think EDM is, I don't know. It's just something's missing from it when I listen to it. It's just, I don't know. It's too techno. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I can appreciate the fact there is techno music. Some people like it, so.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It serves its purpose. Someone connects to it.
Yeah, for sure. So you have a love for ukuleles?
Yes.
So where does that come from?
So even now, I don't play piano. And that is one of the things that always makes me stand out in music education, because going through, it is drilled into you like, you are going to have to play piano. You are going to have to play your patriotic songs at assemblies for all of your schools. Like, this is a thing. First off, no, it's not a thing. Actually, you as an educator are going to decide your path, and you are going to decide how you teach your children and what that's going to look like in your classroom. And so I kind of just put that back here and said, okay, I'm going to learn the basics of how to play the piano, but I'm not going to get that stressed out about it. And like, I feel if education was the same in 1988 as it is now, I feel like I would definitely have qualified for an IEP, like an individualized education plan, because there are some things that I just don't get. There are some things that if it's not explained in a certain way, it is way above my head and I can't process it. And to me, piano is one of those things. My left hand and my right hand are never going to be truly independent of each other. Like, it's not going to happen. My eyes are reading the music, my left hand doing this, my right hand's doing this. Oh, let's throw a pedal in. Like, I can't. So I learned the basics of piano, passed all my courses, got hired. It's not been a problem ever since. But I also then thought, okay, I need to find alternate ways to accompany my classes. When we're doing things like I need to be able to support them, how am I going to do this? Because plunking out chords here and there is only so entertaining up to a point. So then there's the xylophones. You could use classroom instruments to do that and achieve that with. But then I got it into my head, because at one point I did learn how to play guitar. But at that point it was classical guitar, and it was more of a finger picking style. It was finger style. And I was more interested in learning the chords. So I had a guitar, and I just on the weekend was like trying to teach myself how to play it. And like most things, I got to a certain point. I was like, this is incredibly frustrating. Forget it. We're not doing this anymore. So a very good friend of mine and colleague who works in my school district, we often go on musical adventures during the summer. And one of the musical adventures was she came over to my house and she was like, I'm learning how to play the ukulele. I'm like, the what? Why? Okay, why? She's like, here, you try. I was blown away at how easy it was and what a big sound it was. And I just thought, oh my God, this is a perfect instrument to use in the classroom to accompany my kids. This is fabulous. So I quickly went on Amazon, as you do, and I, bought this really crappy ukulele and, this whole kit, and it came in the mail, and the only purpose it really served was giving me the incentive of actually going out and buying a real instrument. So I learned how to play. I went out and I bought my first Lanikai, and kept learning. And it just became something that was part of like self-care for me. So after work, I'd come home and I'd play a few songs and I would decompress from the day. And I thought, this is the best. My kids love the ukulele. So even before I started teaching them how to play, Old MacDonald on a ukulele, hands down, the kids' favorite thing. Like in kindergarten, it's a big hit. Like they just think it's the coolest ever. They love it. So ukulele just became a really big deal because then I saw the potential in teaching the students how to play it, because I got to a point in my own career, probably around year 12, maybe 14, where I was like, I never ever want to hear the sound of a recorder ever again. I don't want to hear hot cross buns on a plastic recorder for the rest of my life. I don't want to do it. I don't want to teach it. I don't want to do it. I hate it. So I got rid of the recorder, and I had my principal order me 7 ukuleles, and we just kind of stumbled our way through that first year. And I realized that like this was an interesting thing, because no matter what, when you have 25 children strumming on a ukulele, no matter what they're doing, it sounds beautiful. And it is like a peaceful, quiet sound. And it's so nice. It's so nice to hear. Whereas 25 children playing on the recorder, like hearing damage automatically, headaches, like no good. I recognized what the ukulele had to offer, and I'm really glad that I did, because it's been awesome for my classroom and for me.
Yeah, that's good. This is an interesting story for why it kind of, why you like it so much and all that. I mean, all it takes is like, that one change to an instrument, and then, it could be for the better.
Absolutely.
Changing music, yeah, like when you're changing different, instruments, different styles, a lot of times you got to take that risk.
Yes.
Because like, honestly, I agree. I don't like the sound of the recorder. I remember playing it in elementary school, and I absolutely hated playing that.
And that's it. And I have kids that come back and visit me often, and that's the first thing they ask me. Do you still make kids play the recorder? I'm like, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing the ukulele instead. And they always are like, yeah, but I can still play hot cross buns, and and it is a beautiful instrument, and it serves its purpose very well. But it is such a frustrating and unforgiving instrument that as we move forward, and public schools especially become more open and accepting to students with learning disabilities, the recorder is not the instrument to put in someone who is different in learning. That's not the instrument to put in their hands. You want to give them a forgiving instrument, and the ukulele is, because anybody can strum. Anybody, whether you've got all 5 fingers or not, you can strum. And whatever you're going to do with that instrument is going to sound great anyway, because it's a beautiful sounding instrument. So I like it for that. I like it a lot for that.
Yeah, I love the ukulele, but I've never composed any music with it. It's an instrument I'd look forward to doing, but I don't have the software or anything to do it digitally. I would have to like learn the instrument myself, or rent it, or even get someone who knows how to play it and then record that. And like,
Ukuleles are very affordable.
Yeah, they are cheaper for sure. They are cheaper than like a cello, for instance.
Absolutely.
Like pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, even with the ukulele and how you have all those teaching sessions and all that, what's the atmosphere of your classroom like for the most part?
So there is a Danish word called hygge, Hygge. And I definitely practice the art of hygge in my classroom and basically in my life. It's basically that warm, cozy feeling. So my classroom is a wonderfully warm, safe space for all of my students. I have little string lights hanging at all times, and they're always lit. I have little lamps with soft white light in them. Any chance I get to turn the fluorescent lights off in my classroom is so helpful to everyone because their fluorescent light adds a buzz, and whether you can hear it or not, it is there and it is happening. And to fight that, in addition to the harsh brightness, there's a lot coming at you, and it's almost like an overload of stimulation. And so I like to keep the lights off if I can, and because I've got windows, I've got those little twinkle lights, and all of that helps. And if I can, I have a sound machine going on a lot of times too, that's either playing like rain, or it's playing ocean waves. I also have one that's just crickets, you know, so the kids will walk in and they're like, sounds like we're in the woods. I'm like, yes, it's to calm us all down. It's to help us all out. So I think what I try to achieve in my classroom space is peace, just a peaceful environment for everyone to feel safe and have fun and learn in.
Yeah, that sound machine sounds pretty cool. Is it like, I feel like if I was in that classroom or that like a place with a sound machine like that, I feel like I'd just fall asleep or something.
Yes.
I don't know if you're like that. Like if you.
Well, it's quiet enough that it doesn't lull you to sleep. It's just, it serves the purpose of, like, for adults, lowering the blood pressure. And for children, it just kind of like, it calms them enough. But like, we're so go, go, go in my class that they don't really have a chance to sit and feel sleepy because we're constantly doing things. I see my students once a 6-day cycle for only 45 minutes, which means I see them 30 times a school year and roughly 3 times a month. So there's a ton of stuff I've got to get accomplished in that short amount of time. So we're constantly moving.
Yeah, that schedule sounds pretty crazy.
Yep.
Why is it that it's such a limited amount of time? Is that just how the school runs, or?
There is a great push in my state, and I know it's not just in my state, but there's a great push for academic achievement these days, standardized tests. And what's beginning to happen is administrators and school boards are starting to look at the minutes that children are spending in the classroom, and they're starting to kind of come to a decision that it's not enough. So there are schools that are losing the funding for the arts. They're losing funding for art and music and library, and some are even losing funding for PE, so that children can spend more time in their classrooms learning the content that will eventually be on a standardized test later on in the year. In my particular district, they decided to move everybody to a 6-day rotating schedule. They've given many different reasons for why this is the case. One that's standing out right now is so that the high schools, middle schools, and the elementary schools would all be on the same schedule, so that parents wouldn't have to think like it's a day at the high school, but it's Tuesday in the elementary school, and like they wouldn't, everything could kind of coordinate and be exactly the same. We've also incorporated a STEM program in the elementary schools, and that's where all of my classes have gone. So I've lost 6 classes from the school year because I now have what's considered a STEM class. So I am a facilitator along with the PE teacher and the art teacher and the librarian. We are facilitators for a STEM program in our building, and the long and the short of it is that children are no longer getting the chance to digest anything that they're learning. There's no room for creative play anymore. There's no room for imagination. And that's what STEM class at the elementary level is offering them. It's the chance to work on those soft skills, working in teams, collaborating, building, failing, figuring out how to succeed. It's all that we're able to provide them within that time period.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. with all this, with the scheduling and stuff, too, another question I have is that because it's elementary school, do you do like a Christmas, is it like a musical or something like that that the kids do? Because I know when I was in elementary school, we did like a big, Christmas like musical. We would do a play and then we'd do some instrument stuff for our music classes. Do you have that as well, or?
So in my particular elementary school, we have our winter concert, which is fifth grade band, fourth and fifth grade strings, and then the fourth and fifth grade chorus, which is what I actually teach. I teach the chorus. So we have our winter program. Later on in the month, we do a whole school sing-along. So we all kind of come together in the gymnasium. I throw the lyrics up on the huge projector. The band director will play and we'll all do a sing-along, and it's like a half hour on the very last day of school before winter break, and then everyone like runs out of the building. But we have to be very careful in public elementary school to not heavily weigh on one particular holiday or another, just because we kind of have to observe everyone's faith. We have to observe everyone's traditions and everyone's holidays. So we can't ever say it's a Christmas program or anything like that. So it's going to incorporate all of the winter holiday songs and things like that. So, but yeah, we do a sing-along. We don't do a play or anything like that.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool that you guys do that. So yeah, there's some other questions. I had some at the top of my head. I kind of forgot them. I always forget to ask certain things. I always you're talking mid through, you'll bring something up. I have a question on that, and then you bring something else up, and then I kind of lose that thought. But it'll probably.
Well, it's really throwing me off that you're not going down the list, and I'm like.
No, we actually usually don't. It's just those are just questions to look out for. Essentially, we never really do follow the exact list in order because I don't know.
It's an organic conversation. I appreciate that. But my type A personality was like, that's not the first question. That's not the second question.
Yeah. Yeah. We try to keep it as just a natural conversation. That way everyone's just more comfortable. I don't like running through every question one by one. But anyhow, the next one, the one I was thinking of is how do you balance your work and then the stuff you do at home if you play instruments at home or whatnot or whatever you do?
That it's difficult. I will say it's very difficult to get to a place in your own personal development where you can be confident in leaving work at work. And that's ultimately what has to happen. And when I was first out of the gates, first 5 years within teaching, I was the first person in the parking lot at the beginning of the day, and I was the last person in the parking lot at the end of the day. And I thought that is what made me a great teacher, that I was willing to put in so many hours to doing all of the things in my classroom. And the truth of the matter is, if you give 12 hours to your workday, you will find something to fill those 12 hours. If you give 16 hours, you're still going to find things to fill that time. But is it necessary? What are you doing in the time that you're supposed to be doing that you can't complete your tasks? So I eventually got to a point where I thought, you know what? I don't want to be one of those teachers that get burnt out. And that's what was really truly happening, because I had grad school and I had all these little extra performances that my kids were doing, and it just became way too much. So for me, the work home life balance is being able to put things in their own separate places. So when I am at work, I am there 100%. I am giving 100% of my attention and my energy to do my job the best that I can. But when the work day is done, I leave it there. I try very hard not to bring things home with me. That's not always realistic, especially around report card time, because I have every single student in the school. So it's unrealistic to grade, 500 kids in a 45-minute planning period. So there are times when I do bring things home, but I'm very careful to make sure that if I am bringing work home, that it does not exceed an hour of my personal time. And I think any educator needs to get to that place where you recognize in yourself that making that distinction between work life and home life does not make you less of a teacher. It just makes you, I think, smarter, because you are saying, I'm giving 100% here, and then when I'm at home, I'm giving 100% at home. It's not good for your well-being to keep carrying things with you in and out. I don't think it's helpful. For me, it wasn't helpful. I didn't enjoy that. So a big part of my last, I guess, 10 years has been, I get to work about 20 minutes early. That way I can kind of like process what's happening for the day, make sure I've got everything that I need to get organized. But for the most part, like, I leave within 5 to 10 minutes after the contract ends for the day. And I personally don't think that makes me a bad teacher. It makes me realistic, and I'm putting myself first in that situation because I achieved what I needed to today, and now I am done. And I will be back again tomorrow, refreshed and ready to go. Whereas some people who are staying until 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night to get things done, they're exhausted the next day, and eventually that exhaustion turns into resentment, and then you're not giving 100% at your work because you never leave.
Yeah, some good advice for, anybody who's like in your shoes, or even just anyone who's trying to balance time between home and work.
Yeah.
And yeah, speaking of advice, do you have any advice to pass on to people that might want to be like a music teacher like yourself?
Well, it's not supposed to be easy. It is actually this difficult. It's not, especially when you first get started, because a lot of music educators are in it for life. So I got my current job, I received when the woman before me retired. And that was a very difficult thing, coming into a position, being new and young and having all these ideas. And I walked into a building with a lot of grown adults who were in the middle to end of their career, who had only ever experienced one way of doing things. And so when I came in with like all my new wild ideas, they didn't want any part of that. And so that was a very difficult thing. And sometimes being a music teacher in your building can feel like you're kind of like on a deserted island, because while you have the art teacher and the PE teacher and the librarian, who are also considered encore teachers or specialists, they're not music teachers. They're not doing exactly what you're doing. So if you are getting into the music education field, have some thick skin, have a backbone. Remember that no is a complete sentence. You are not expected to walk in the footsteps of the person that was there before you, but don't go changing all the things in the first year either.
Yeah, for sure. And like, we always like to ask for advice because there's always people interested to hear what professionals have to say.
Absolutely.
With that, do you have many mentors that helped you kind of along the way?
The teacher down the hall. The teacher down the hall is always the mentor that you are looking for. The educator that is giving you a hard time about something is also a mentor. The person that you are watching who doesn't really seem to have a lot of classroom management, that's a mentor too. I am very observant. I have picked up a lot of different things in those observations, and one of the things that I've recognized is what to do versus what not to do. So I'm learning that lesson while watching all of my peers, while watching all of my colleagues do what they normally do. When I first started teaching, my first year teaching, I was given an official mentor. She was the art teacher, and she taught right next door, and she was wonderful, but she was also very careful not to give me advice. She was also very careful not to tell me how to do things. She let me make my own mistakes. She let me learn lessons the hard way. She celebrated my successes with me, and then she helped me work through my failures. And when I became a mentor about 5 years ago, I think I was given that position like in an official capacity. I tried very hard to do the exact same thing, in that I didn't want to impose 15 years of experience onto this person who's brand new and has their own ideas. I was trying to say, okay, these are the things that we do in our school. Here we go. And I'm your support, and whatever you need, I can support you with. But I think the best professional development that anyone could receive is the teacher next door, the teacher down the hall, because good or bad, you are going to learn from them something.
Yeah, that's always something to look out for, are those who kind of give you a hard time, because people who generally do that do care about improvement. They do care about, because it's something like when someone makes something hard on you, you're definitely going to keep it in mind. You're definitely going to have to meet your expectations, and to meet those expectations, you're going to have to improve something, some field or something.
Yes, definitely.
With that, I have one more question for teaching. It's more about the educational system today, and if some people like to say there's a lot of stuff that's out of date, and then there's others that say, oh, it's fine, leave it as it is. What would you say for that?
Well, I think kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about standardized testing, and we are putting, and I say we as in the royal we, are putting so many demands on children that it is becoming unrealistic. It's becoming very unrealistic when we consider the educational psychology of child development. It's not realistic to expect a kindergartner to be able to do multiple numbers of addition and subtraction. That's not realistic. They're 5. Let's work on tying shoes, reading, recognizing things. Let's work on manners and play. But everyone's so bent on getting test scores and making the best little intelligent children in the whole wide world that we're missing some pretty big things. We're missing some really pretty big things. And if I had any say in the matter or could change anything, I would say that more tests are not actually the way to go, and taking away recess is definitely not the way to go. Children need to explore their learning. They need to digest what you're feeding them in their learning. They need a chance to process what is coming at them. And in today's age, that's I think the biggest crime, is that there's not enough time that children have to be able to become who they're supposed to be, because we're constantly shoving information at them.
Yeah, I agree. Same with children is you just got to give them time to be children. They not force them into certain things. Manners is huge. I'm seeing less and less of it every single day. I was raised to hold the door open for people and stuff like that. You're not seeing that often. I don't know how many times I've walked around in public to I don't know, anywhere like a mall or something, and then someone right in front of you just doesn't hold the door. It's just courtesy. You don't see it anymore. That's something we need to teach people in the beginning, because I feel like there's a lot of parents that don't even bother with it, because
they don't have time either. They're
well,
working.
they don't have time. Like, some things, obviously no one's teaching these kids how, like, any manners, like just courtesy and stuff. So that's something that I find could easily be improved in society. And another thing is that there's, like, everyone's so different too. School is like a one way, like everyone does the same thing. There is no options and alternatives for taking different paths towards your career. School really doesn't offer too much of that. And that's, I don't know what you can do about that. There are options you can take in high school per se, but like,
those options are available younger though, and they should be. Kids should be able to see what's available to them. I mean, we are in a really cool situation actually, because my school, the current building that I'm in, is going to be torn down this summer. And they're right now in the middle of constructing our new school. So the students have a really cool opportunity to see what that looks like, and to see grown-ups building a school. And like, they think that that's a really cool thing. And it's like, we need more of that. We need tradespeople. We need people who can be construction workers, and we need that. And it's so cool for them to be able to see that, because they see all of us, doing the teaching thing, whatever their parents are doing, they see that. But it's a kind of a cool connection for them to see these people that show up every single day, and to just watch their playground basically be destroyed and a school being built in its place. And that's a cool thing, I think, for them to actually be watching happen.
Yeah, it's something that they wouldn't normally see. So
exactly.
Another thing I wanted to touch on in terms of education is how I feel like when people say it's outdated, there are things that are outdated for sure. There should be some kind of financial core class, like we're talking high school. I don't know why there isn't, because like you just have to learn all this off the bat. And of course, like the moment you get your credit card, a lot of people are idiots with it. Well, you can't even say they're idiots with it, because they just don't know, and no one taught them any of it. No one knows interest rates. They're like, they don't understand all this stuff. I don't understand why that's not being taught yet. We're being taught like Shakespeare and all this stuff that once you graduate, you don't even use like ever again, unless there's like a super specific career. Like, I don't know, like I don't get that. And nothing really is being done about that. I just don't understand how it is a lot of work to change the school system, but I feel like you have to.
Everything has a reason, everything has a purpose, and it's in the hands of a good educator to make it relevant. And I know your company interviewed CJ Reynolds with Real Rap with Reynolds, and he's an English teacher and doing the Shakespeare thing, but he's that kind of guy who's going to make that real world connection for his students. And I think that's what separates people who just show up every day to do their job versus the ones who like actually give it thought and who remember what it's like to be sitting there in a classroom learning. And it's important to make an outside connection so that they can, go out and, I don't know, see something, or take their girlfriend somewhere and be like, yeah, we're going to go see this play. And like, they can make that connection. They understand what's going on. For my students, I'm teaching them how to be music consumers, like how to recognize the sounds of a good band, like how to understand copyright, how to understand those things, so that when they do go out into the world, hopefully some of that starts to come back to them and makes that connection, like, oh, that's what she was talking about, or that makes more sense now when you think of it this way. But I totally agree with you. Like, I think everyone would benefit from, like, this is how you do taxes. This is how you write a check. This is how you don't go into debt with your credit card. Like that, yeah, that should definitely be a part of Welcome to High School 101.
Yeah, but yeah, I see. Yeah, for sure. The shakes. It's not like I'm hating on Shakespeare and say it's like it shouldn't be taught. I personally like learning about Shakespeare, but ever since I left high school, I haven't touched upon it once. And most people I know, most of my grade probably hasn't even looked back at it. It's one of those things that matters in the moment. We need to like teach more that matters over time and stays with you. Like teaching taxes and stuff, how to do this stuff. Like I feel like I don't know, society would run more smooth. We got people that actually understand what they're doing, and there's not constant like people probably nag on their parents for help all the time for this stuff. So.
Of course.
But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the education part. We kind of have more of the trending questions
to
ask, and yeah, and that wraps up the interview.
Okay.
So yeah, first question. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Why iPhone?
I found for music, it's a lot easier. It's a lot more user friendly. And I unfortunately fell into the same trap, I guess a lot of Apple users have fallen into, where you get one product, which leads to another product, which leads to another. And then like your entire life is kind of wrapped up in Apple, and it's just now like impossible to think of going to something else, because is that going to connect? Is there going to be an issue? Am I going to lose everything that I've purchased? Like it's a whole thing. So I'm an Apple user.
What do you think of the battery? And I literally asked this for everyone who says Apple, because I use Apple. I hate the batteries in the phone. Like, what do you think? Is it a problem for you unless you have like the newest one?
Oh, I never have the newest phone. I don't know. I don't think I do it correct though. Like I always charge my phone at night. Like every night I plug it in. Like I'm the high anxiety person that once we go below 50%, like I'm having a fit. Like I'm like, I can't, I gotta do something about this. It doesn't last. The battery does not last. I will say, like, if I'm listening to an audiobook on my way into work, and I also teach in like kind of like a dead zone for the cell towers, like they're just not there. So the phone will then be roaming, which then uses up more battery life. So I guess I really haven't even thought about it, but yeah, I guess you're right. The battery is pretty crappy because it's plugged in at work to get it back to 100%, and then like coming home listening to an audio book, and now I'm at 63%. So yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, I have to bring my charger to work and charge it at least once or twice a day, because mine's a 6S, but it's just the battery's so run down. The batteries, like their durability, and then their just over time, they just they wear out so fast, and then they're just pretty useless.
Yeah.
I don't know if Apple has something to do with it. I heard something about Apple getting in trouble over the battery or something, or they're like downgrading their phones so they can get you to get the new one. But I mean, that's just a marketing strategy. I'm pretty sure most companies do that stuff. Like, why wouldn't they?
Of course.
But yeah, our next question is, what do you think of like the ongoing plant-based food and products that's like you see everywhere?
I'm here for it. I haven't eaten red meat in a really long time. And I didn't like, it wasn't like a vegetarian thing, like animal rights. Like it wasn't a part of that. Like I just didn't really like red meat. And I think it was just kind of like one of those things where I had noticed after like a year, like, oh, I haven't had any steak. And then by the time I had tried it again, or even tried making it, it made me so sick just to smell it that I was like, all right, forget this. I was recently diagnosed with a gluten allergy in addition to a dairy allergy. So I'm all here for the plant-based products. So.
Yeah. They're probably more pricey though, for sure.
Yes, they are definitely more pricey. That is absolutely true. But my hope is that more people consume it, then it will become easier to make and hopefully less expensive.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to see different changes to stuff. Even with the animal rights and all that. I mean, you're never going to stop people from eating meat. I feel like the real argument is how much we waste.
Yes.
Like, that's in general. Like, even if you were buying plant-based food and you're giving it to your kids or something and they're just not eating it, like they're eating half of it or eating half their steak, like, I think it's just more of a human thing to just teach people to stop wasting food.
Yeah.
And just, like, don't order so much food if you're unsure you're going to finish it.
Right.
That way you can reduce it or force yourself to finish it. Like either one. Like sometimes I order too much food or something, but I go out of my way. Like even though that feeling if you're too full, it just kind of hurts. I'll go to that as long as I'm not wasting any of it.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's kind of the real problem. But another one trending question, whatnot, kind of relates to what, I don't know if you watch Grammys, but it's kind of like about music and stuff.
I don't watch any award shows actually. If, and it's actually kind of sad, if a music artist that I loved growing up has passed, I will tune in for the in memoriam because I'm curious to see like how they represent the artist. But I think like we talked about earlier, my struggle with a lot of the musicians of today is I don't connect with their music. It's not written for my age group. I don't connect with it. And I have a difficult time giving my time to listening to something that I'm not enjoying. So I don't watch the Grammys at all. I think it's cool that they still do that. I mean, it's nice that people are still being recognized, but then you can get into the argument of you're awarding the face of the music, but not the writer of the music. And so you could go either way with it, but I don't watch.
That's kind of the question actually, is whether people are getting the rewards. I know you can't really answer because you don't watch the Grammys, but the question really was like, if you feel it's like justified for some of these artists nowadays getting the rewards. Because I've watched the Grammys last year. I'm not a huge fan of today's music either, but I still tune in. They have all the genres. They'll do rewards for like rock and stuff. But like I listen to some of these winners, and I just feel like they're just giving the reward to them because of their face, yep, their presence on a music platform. It's not for their song or their musical talent. I listen to a lot of this music. I'm like, this doesn't win it. I've heard way better songs this year, and honestly, most of the public, like I feel like can agree with it. I watched this music reviewer on YouTube, and he does Grammy predictions and stuff, and he's always like, a lot of his stuff's way off, but it's like he gives an actual critical like analysis on the music. He doesn't talk about the artist. Like every artist has their style, but he won't take it into consideration how popular a song was. It's the song, how good the song is. And the Grammys are always way off. They don't connect very well, and that's why I can't watch the Grammys anymore myself. But that's kind of the case with that. So that basically wraps up the interview. Thanks for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Is there any questions or?
No, but I do want to answer one question that you had sent, because I get asked this a lot, and I think it's humorous to me. The question was something about, I call my viewers unicorns. Why would I choose this mythical creature? My school was built in the 70s, and educators love alliteration, and my school begins with the letter U. And so of all the mascots that you have to choose from, they chose a unicorn. And forever I resisted even acknowledging that that was our mascot. But until last year, when I started my teacher Instagram page and then my YouTube channel, I kind of just thought, you can't beat them, join them, and let me be unique in being a unicorn. So, and I do say that to my students because we are encouraged to move away from gender identifiers. So instead of saying boys and girls or things like that, like a lot of teachers will say good morning students or good morning friends, but I always call them unicorns, and it's just something that's really stuck. And I just thought it was kind of important because I get that question all the time, like, why would you choose unicorns? Do you really love them that much? And it's like, they're my mascot. I had no choice in the matter.
Yeah, that was the question I actually forgot to ask. I was going to ask that question because I found it was an interesting question when I was looking over. But yeah, that's pretty neat. And it's, I don't know, I feel like that brings more joy to the classroom rather than students. Students is generic, like everyone you would just say something like that.
Yes, and it's very endearing when a new student will come to the school, because they'll come from a school where they're the Badgers or they're the Sharks or the Bears or the Tigers, you know, and their first thought is like, I'm a unicorn, like, really? But it's cute because after a while, even the students that have been there for ages will look and they'll look at that person like, you're a unicorn now. And it's just such a cute thing that it's like, we're all unicorns together, dude. Let's just embrace it. Here we are. So it's cute.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that, I guess that was the last question you wanted to answer. So yeah, that wraps everything up. Thanks again